So today was mail day over at Nostalgic, and we got quite a few boxes, 2 of which from our pals over at Retro Fighters. I've been waiting a hot minute for this shipment, and I was so excited that it finally got here. We got a huge restock on Brawlers, Strikers, and we also got a bunch of controllers that we've never carried at Nostalgic before, like the Contender for the Switch, the Gen 6, and this, the Defender. This is Retro Fighters' brand new ultimate PlayStation controller, fresh off the Kickstarter. This juicy slice of plastic and PCB works on your PS1, 2, and 3, but it doesn't stop there. It also works on the PlayStation Classic Mini, your PC, and the Nintendo Switch. I don't know why you'd want to fit your PlayStation shapes into letter-shaped holes, but you can do it. Box touts all the cool features, such as 2.4 gigahertz wireless technology, pressure-sensitive buttons, turbo functionality, comfortable and responsive analog sticks, vibration feedback, compatible with PS1, PS2, PS3, PS Classic, Switch, PC, wireless range over 30 feet, LED indicator, includes both USB and PS1, PS2 receivers, and includes a USB charging cable. Before we jump into this controller itself, I just want to say that this video is not directly sponsored by Retro Fighters. We bought this controller and all of the other ones wholesale for sale in our store, Nostalgic Video Games. Being a retro game store, new products like this really aren't on a lot of people's radar. So we like to give you guys these overviews to help you make the most informed decisions when spending your hard-earned money. All the thoughts expressed in this video are just my own. I've loved just about every Retro Fighters controller I've handled so far, so I'm just excited to get my grubby little grippers on another one here. So if you like this video, leave us a like and subscribe if you aren't already. And if you picked up this controller, drop us a comment down below because I would love to know what you guys think of it. I don't really know anything about this. All I know is what Retro Fighters has on their website, and I couldn't help myself from watching Mad Little Pixel's video on it because he actually cracked this thing open and took a look at the insides. As cool as that would be, I will not be doing it in this video because this will eventually be sold to somebody and I don't want my dumbass breaking it. And if you aren't aware, our Redbubble store is officially up. We've got tons of cool designs on shirts, stickers, posters, and even more on there. So go check that out, the link is in the description. That is the best and only way to support this channel directly. All the profits there go directly back into making content for you guys. So without further ado, let's check this out. In the box, you get another box that you gotta crack open here. And the first thing you get is your quick start instruction manual. Just as comprehensive and well designed as all the other Retro Fighters controllers we've looked at so far. Features easy to follow pairing steps and an FAQ section, which has some really helpful information on it. Not to mention they went through the trouble of matching the controller color on the manual. It's the little things. Next, you get this little sheet reminding you to charge your controller for a minimum of 2 hours before using it. All of the Retro Fighters controllers I've opened up so far have come fully charged, and the Defender was no exception. I'm guessing this is just if it sits on a shelf in a store for so long and that the battery drains and you get it home and plug it up and it doesn't work immediately, you don't freak out and think it's broken. Then you get your USB-C charging cable. I love USB-C. I always appreciate seeing this over micro USB because these charge faster and the cables don't wear out nearly as fast. One thing is that this doesn't come with a power adapter on the end to plug into a wall outlet. I'm sort of resigned from being frustrated with that. I mean, we all have a ton of them hanging out in some drawer with a bunch of loose half-used 9-volt batteries and paper clips somewhere. Corporations have just disillusioned and jaded me in this late-stage capitalistic society. Then, you get this little white box. Open it up, you find your dongles. Don't lose them. You get this USB dongle with an indicator light right there with the cap that just pops right off. This is for the PlayStation Classic Mini, the PS3, and PC and Switch. You also get a PS1 and PS2 dongle that matches the color of the controller you have. This also has a little indicator light on it. I know I say it in every video, but I love translucent plastic, and this, I think, bar the Spawn Kickstarter knife things, is the most I've ever wanted to actually eat something. And last, but certainly not least, you get the controller itself. But one glaring omission when compared to all of the other Retro Fighters controllers that we've looked at thus far is the keychain. There is no little pixel dude keychain. This is a travesty. Last one we checked out, the Striker DC, had a little dino boxer dude. You spoil me with little Dino Man and then you take it away? Is this some kind of game to you, Retro Fighters? You think you can just play with me like that? I deserve my goddamn Pixel Dino keychain thing, and then you're gonna take it away from me? I swear to Excuse me, I almost lost my cool there. Retro Fighters always does a fantastic job of giving you everything you need in the box. Cables, dongles, a physical printed out user manual with all of the information you need. Super comprehensive and helpful. Just companies don't put that kind of effort in anymore. So it's awesome to see a group out there really putting thought and attention and effort into their products. Now to me, the controller itself is very reminiscent of a Switch Pro controller in form factor, but with a DualShock button layout. This thing feels good. I know a lot of my friends really don't like the PS4 controller, but personally I do. I've got really big hands, so the contours fit my palms perfectly. So here, these prongs I think could have been a little meatier, a little longer, and it would have fit my palms a little better. But one thing that I do think is improved over the PS4 controller is the button placement here. The sloped contours of this controller have me hold it in a comfortable way that the tip of my thumb is right at the buttons. Whereas with the PS4 DualShock controller, I feel like I'm pressing all the buttons with the middle of my thumb. And this just feels a lot more comfortable when mashing those buttons. Speaking of the buttons, they all feel great. Not too clickety, but they're still firm and smooth. They also have those legally ambiguous shapes because Sony decided to copyright a sequence of basic geometric shapes. All the buttons are molded in this clear plastic, and the images sit kind of low in them, so they look really deep-seated in those buttons. It's got a kind of weird effect, but it's cool. The one thing that looks wrong to me is the home button. Now obviously I know they can't use the PlayStation logo, but just the big blocky white house set deep in that clear plastic that refracts light like a cloaked predator, it's just kind of weird. Everything's good quality, but just that sort of basic stock house image just sort of screams cheap to me, which Retro Fighters controllers are absolutely not. They are really, really high quality. It's not game breaking and it's not really anything too important, it's just something my brain keeps pointing out to me. Now the triggers feel fantastic. That pressure sensitivity is oh so satisfying. The only buttons that feel a bit wonky are this punch button here and this screenshot button. These are real clickety, but they're small, so it's nice to let you know I clicked it. The punch button has something to do with the turbo, you know, making it like automatic so you don't have to like hold down the turbo or something. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of turbo. It kind of just feels like cheating to me, but hey, if you like it, it is fully integrated into this controller, and there are multiple options here when using that turbo. So it's always nice to have options, and if you don't use it, you don't use it. Both the analog sticks feel great and are super smooth. Really nothing else to say about them. Of course, they don't feel exactly like an OEM controller, but they still feel fantastic in their own right. There's also a nice texture here on the back of the controller. I don't know if that picks up on camera, but it's nice and subtle and just gives you a little extra grip and a little more tactile feel to it, without being too intrusive or weird. This controller also comes in 4 different colors: classic PlayStation gray, this translucent green, which is my personal favorite, a translucent blue, and a matte black. That's all I've really got to say about how this thing feels and looking at it at a glance, but I know you guys want to see how this thing controls, so let's put it through the paces. So the first game I tested this controller with was the Street Fighter Collection on PS1. I'm here playing Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and I kind of got my ass kicked. I'm not like super great at the Street Fighter games, but I find them fun. But I attribute a lot of that to just the different feeling D-pad. You can use the analog sticks, they will read as D-pad inputs for PS1 games like this. And you can also use the right analog stick for button inputs. But it's super weird when trying to pull off a Hadouken like that. But yeah, I mean, I was able to pull off some combos that I knew, but I'm not super knowledgeable in all the combos or anything, so there was no real input lag or anything. I didn't really have fun because these AI were just absolutely demolishing me, but I didn't notice any actual problems with the controller, so we'll move on to the PS2 game I've got picked out here. So here's one of my favorite games of all time, LEGO Indiana Jones: The Original Adventures on the PS2. Fun fact, this was the first video game I ever 100%ed and was probably the game I had the most time on as a kid. Absolutely love this game, absolutely love Indiana Jones. And this game played really well with this controller. I was a little concerned about adapting to the different feel of the analog sticks and the buttons with sort of a puzzle-solving action platformer like the LEGO games, but it worked really well. It took a little bit of getting used to because I also originally played this on the Nintendo Wii, so playing this on a PS2 felt weird in the first place. I was really interested in seeing how the Boulder Run segment played with this controller, and it controlled just fine. I had really no problems. I died once, but, you know, that's how it be in these LEGO games. And I actually ended up playing this for quite a while because I was just getting super nostalgic over it, and I might just have to stream this game at some point. So for the PS3, we got another one of my all-time favorites, Transformers War for Cybertron. And you can see I'm kind of struggling here. It took a little bit to get used to this controller with this game. I had to try like 3 different PlayStation systems. I just couldn't get them working through the Elgato, but I ended up getting one that worked, and I had to use AV, so it looks a little wonky, but Overall, this played just fine with the controller. I'm not a huge fan of first or third person shooters with controller. Personally, I prefer the precision of a mouse or something like that. And I had some problems just because you can't remap the controls in this game, and the weapon firing buttons were the shoulder buttons and not the triggers, and the triggers were the special abilities, so I kept triggering the float ground pound special move. But I do think if you are used to and prefer using controllers for shooters, this controller would give you no problems at all, especially if the controls are on that pressure-sensitive trigger. It feels really, really good to use those. If you haven't played this game, you definitely should, whether you love Transformers or not. And its sequel, Fall of Cybertron, is in my top 5 games of all time. I love that game to death. This one's fantastic, but they just really streamlined and made a beautiful, beautiful game with Fall of Cybertron, so check that out if you haven't. So that is the Retro Fighters Defender, a super neat and versatile controller that works on 5 different consoles and your PC. It's not quite like the Brawler and the Striker, where I think those 2 controllers are some of the best controllers that are on the market for their respective consoles, and arguably better than the OEM controllers. But it definitely introduces some really nice quality of life changes with wireless functionality and the cross-console compatibility. It's not a game changer, but it's definitely still a fantastic release from our homeboys over at Retro Fighters. These guys are batting 100 as far as I'm concerned, and I cannot wait for the Battler GC to come out later this year. We have some of those pre-ordered for the store, and you can bet we're going to do a video on those when they show up. So make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on that. If you stuck around this long, thanks for watching, I appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
I love crappy third-party controllers. Hey, Retro Fighter! You're here to save me!
Defend your game room with the Retro Fighters Defender.
Thanks, Retro Fighter.
Not sponsored by Retro Fighters. Please play responsibly.